Hello and welcome to the video in which I review a 3D printed foam dart pistol. My son wanted a Nerf gun for Christmas. We did not end up getting him one, but instead of buying one from the shops, I thought, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea if I actually 3D printed one? That way, I could print two and both my sons could have one, because obviously whatever the older brother has, the younger brother wants too. And that way also, because they're boys, when they did manage to break it, I could always just print another one. So I went up to Thingiverse and had a look for basically toy guns. Came across this one, which looked really simple, straightforward to put together. The designer also included a video on how to assemble it, which helped tons. And it was all included in one file, and as he said, all you needed was just the filament. Turns out not to be the case, as this was done in 2011 when 3mm filament was more popular than what it is today. Basically, the premise of it was you print your gun with using 3mm filament. Then you use the same 3mm filament to use as the pins and the spring eventually. So your gun would be assembled all using only filament. These days, I don't think the 3mm filament is as popular. I use 1.75, but the designer does include a link. Now it's not scrolling. A link to where you can get a substitute, and that again is here. So I ended up following this route, printing this out as well, and then using this in the assembly of the gun. It ended up working pretty well, so if you don't have 3mm filament, this is definitely something I would recommend. It does work. But let's have a closer look at the gun. All you have to do here is download the thing files. You only really need to download this one. You can obviously download that and hack away at it. But if you just want to print it, all you need is the STL file. Once you've downloaded it, you can import it into your program. I use Kiro for the slicing. Now you can see this is the default way that the gun appears in the slicer. This is obviously the best way to print it as well, because given this, there's no support structures needed, there's no funny other stuff. It prints out really well, doing it exactly as it comes out. If I have a look at my settings, with the light in full, it took roughly 5 hours, 4 hours, 48 minutes to print. I print very little plate adhesion. Take a look at the actual settings that I use here. I printed mine on a low quality, which is a 0.15mm layer height, but it ended up being really nice. So I don't think for something that's going to get bumped around and so on, I really don't think you need to spend much more time with that. A wall thickness of 1mm ends up being pretty nice and strong. In full density, like I said, of 20%. My filament, I have just a generic kind of filament for China, and it seems to work best at 210 degrees. Default setting of 60 degrees for the bed. I played around with my retraction prime speed, that has more to do with my filament than the actual printing of this. And yeah, I just put a very small brim. So while I was messing around with the settings on my printer, when I printed a wider brim, it would curl up. But like I said, that was probably more to do with the temperature of the filament than the actual print itself. So let's take another little look at this gun. As you can see, it's neatly packaged. This part inside here is actually separate in that it slides up and down. So the elastics join from that part there. It's not showing the prints, the tricks. The elastics basically go between these two hooks, and the elastics provide the tension to pull that forward. So you load it up with the arc, pull the trigger, and that shoots forward using elastics. Just to show you the layers, I love this view. 826 layers of printing, and it goes all the way down. So if we have a look, I don't know how best to highlight that is separate, but as it goes up the layers, you see it only really joins at this point. And there's a definite separation over them. So all in all, I think it's quite a cleverly designed gun. This being the little catch that catches on The part that pushes the dart forward, and it catches on basically the part that you should be completed over here. That hooks in over there. So when you pull this back, it hooks onto that little catch, and then the trigger releases that. So this took a while to print at a 20% in full. I also printed another one, this time hollow, and that took in the region of 3.5 hours. So it did print a little bit quicker, definitely at the cost of strength in the handle, which I'll show a little bit later. You get a definite deflection over there. And once that deflection basically, I think that the 1.0 in full may not last as long. So we go and open up the spring set. You see these are the additional parts. I printed these separately, purely because doing one print at a time lessens the chances that something is going to break, fail, cause wobble to fail. If you delete that, see this literally does just print a simple 3mm bits of plastic with a spring gets pushed in. So the design of the spring is quite neat, and then it catches it on the release. And you wouldn't think it, but that little bit of plastic provides a pretty good spring. So let's take a look at the actual printed gun. And here we have the gun printed and ready for assembly. The print turned out pretty good. Took a little bit of messing around with the settings on the printer, but I found something that worked pretty well. It's quite a simple and straightforward process to assemble this. So we'll take a look at that. This is printed in place and is a permanent feature of the gun now, basically. All we have to do is put the trigger in, put a little spring in, this is mentioned before, and then the actual part that releases the dart forward. So the first thing we can do is put this little release catch in, slide that forward, put that all the way in. So I'm trying to get something where you can actually see. So that slides in from the bottom. Let's do that again. Slides in from the bottom and then hooks in over here. Let's get that in. Basically hooks in over there, and that's what catches on there. So that's held in place with a little pin, which I'll attempt to get inserted now. And it simply pushes in to hold that in place. Once that's in, it's held in, not held in place, but it needs a spring to keep it from coming down. And that is also again pushed in, comes up all the way through to the back and pushes up against that. Well, I think I may have done that upside down. So that looks much better. As you can see, it comes up. And basically hooks around the catch. So now, when we depress that, it acts as a spring. It's a very simple and clever design. The trigger then goes in, and again it's just held in place with a plastic pin, which is also just pushed through. When you pull the trigger, you see that it releases the catch. So if you slide this up, it gives a nice click. Then when you pull the trigger, it releases it. Now in the designer's video, he used torch basically to heat up the plastic and melt it. So I'm not too keen on aiming a flame at my fingers, so I'm going to use a different way and instead use a simple glue gun. Take some glue, squeeze it in there. That's way more than I wanted. Same on this side. Just want to squeeze in enough to go on. Basically stop the pins from falling out. Do the same on this side. So once that dries, pins will be in there, and if we need to, we can still get them out. The last thing to glue in is just this little spring to stop it from sliding out again. And that should do it. So I'll wait for that to cool down so you can get the elastic bands on, and those simply hook around here, these two hooks. Provide the force to pull it forward. Now these are basically just my wife's hair elastics that I'm borrowing until I can find a decent set of elastics, but they do work for the purposes of showing you how this actually pulls it forward. You pull it back to cock it, pull the trigger, and it shoots forward. It's a very simple but very clever design, I think. All I need now is darts. So this one was printed with a 20% infill, and it's ended up being incredibly strong. I'm very surprised at the strength this thing has. I mean, you can hardly get it to deflect it. I'm pretty sure if you had to jump on it, it would probably survive. Save perhaps these, they would break off fairly easily, but the rest of the gun is rock solid. So once I'd done that, I thought, well, this took over 4 hours to print, and because I've got 2 children, I decided I needed to have another gun. I printed another one, but this time with 0 infill. So that may not have been the best move, seeing as it is already broken off a little bit over there. It doesn't change how it works, it still works. But as you can see here, there's a fair amount of deflection. It actually starts cracking if you push too hard. In this aspect, it's still quite strong, but these walls have got nothing supporting them, so it's literally just little bits of plastic on top. There's nothing inside to provide any rigidity. Also, if we look down the barrel, if we squeeze that hard enough, we get a bit of deflection there as well. For the purposes of kids running around shooting foam darts at each other, it's perfectly fine. And these turned out just perfect. I don't think you need any more strength than what these have, even without the infill. So this will still work. And it's going to be interesting to see how long this one lasts versus its cousin that has the infill. You can see the difference that the infill makes on the printing quality, in that this one has a number of ridges, obviously where the infill little points basically touch on the sidewalls, and then you can see that it gives it a more rough experience, more rough texture on the exterior. Quite a cute little gun. Next thing I need to do is now actually go and create darts, because I went to the shops, and to actually purchase the darts is quite a bit more expensive than I imagined, so there's definitely a DIY I'm going to do that, and hopefully I can do a video on that soon. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking, subscribing, letting me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.